recording to start. Okay, that's on there now. Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to start with a bit of housekeeping first. So today's session will be recorded, and the recording and slides will be circulated after the webinar. In the Q&A, please use the chat button to submit your questions. Please don't submit anything that's commercially sensitive, because everybody will see what you put in the chat. We'll try to answer as many questions during the Q&A as possible, starting with those that were submitted first, and then we'll move into ones in the chat. And again, as I said, please avoid asking any scheme-specific questions. So who we've got on the webinar today? We've got Paul Glendinning, Director of Energy Systems, Jim Cardwell, Head of Energy Systems Policy, and supporting the Q&A, we've got Mark Johnson, Head of Major Connections, myself, Luke Scott, Customer Service Manager, Martin Hardwick and Brad Jobson, part of the Transmission Interface team, Hyder Hussain, Connections Business Development Engineer, and Elliot Dixon, Major Connections Engineer. And as always, with the routine customer webinars, we're supported by NESO, and we have Kirk Wilson, who is the Connection Strategy Manager for NESO. So I'll now hand over to Paul, if you would like to do the agenda.
Yeah, thanks very much, Luke, and thank you all for joining us. And we are acutely aware of the time pressure that everybody's under at the moment with the portals, the transmission portal opening today. So many on this call may as well have transmission schemes, and you'll need to start submitting your evidence. And of course, we're going to pick up our process for distribution connected customers for submitting evidence into our portal. So what we want to do today is provide a clear understanding of the latest position in projects in North Balkans area on connections reform and leading up to Clean Power 2030, and to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions around where we are regionally and how we can help you going forward. Increasingly, you'll start to hear in these quarterly webinars, not the deep dives, of course, and the quarterly webinars, you'll start to hear about build programs and our plans for 2020. So as we get underway today, I'm particularly keen to go through where we are with connections reform and the plans for Clean Power 2030. Of course, I think we've well trailed where we were going to be for the last year around what the rationale for the work is around, and around trying to get some projects built rather than having log jams in the system. Now, where we currently are, we believe that we are around about 360 power projects that need to be assessed, and over half of the projects have started to provide evidence, but there's only 93 completed their evidence. So a bit of a concern here at Northern Power Grid, and you'll hear that across all DNOs up and down the country, that there's a slow response, and customers are needing a lot of support, hand-holding through one-on-one support, which we are trying to give. But what I'm here today really to impress on you is that we've got a deadline on the 29th of July. So that's only 3 weeks to go. My forecast, somewhat naively perhaps, was that everybody would submit within the first 3 days, given that we've been holding you up for 2-3 years, but that's just not been the case. And I'm concerned, and what I'd love to hear from this webinar is if there's anybody out there that feels that they can't or they don't have the information to be able to submit, and if there's anything that Northern Power Grid can do to help you, that would be fantastic. So as I said, with deadlines in less than 3 weeks, I also believe that there might well be people out there who've not started, who are in effect not really ready. So they're holding an offer and they haven't got things planned and they haven't got things ready, and that's absolutely understood and fine, and they can join the queue at a later date when they get everything ready. But it would be helpful for us at Northern Power Grid to know that, So rather than just sitting in the background thinking, well, I'll just see what happens at the end. If you could actually send us a message saying, we've had a look at our project and it's probably not ready for 2025. Can we submit in 2027 or 2028? Then I'm sure you probably can do that. So it'd be nice for us to know that instead of us counting from 360 down to 0 for people who started, maybe count down to 10 or 20 or 30, how many's not wishing to start. In terms of our communications and engagement, we are continuing to put on extra explainer webinars to take people through the complexity of the story. And so, we would have a poll and look for anybody on this webinar, on the quarterly one, to tell us if there's anything else that we can do to help. We're really interested to hear that. We would like to provide as much possible help as possible to you all. Our implementation of the plan is going well. It feels that it's going well at our end. We'd love, obviously, to have any feedback from the customers out there who could tell us where we can improve. That'll be fantastic. And increasingly, as we go to the next webinar of one of these, our attention will be turning to the enduring window, which we expect opening in probably late November into December, where we've got a batch of projects to get through that first enduring window. So we're building network connections, and that continues to move forward at pace. The technical limits and the distribution reinforcement is going well. We are growing our delivery capability, and we'll continue to grow our supply chain and our delivery capability as we move through 25 into 26. And that will become a theme of these webinars going forward. It will be about build-out programs. And certainly what you'll start to hear from today onwards as we go through 25 and 26 is the build program focusing on economic growth in the north, the northeast license and the Yorkshire license area. And we've set that out in something called the Energising Growth Strategy, which I'd recommend that everybody on this call get a look at. And of course, in there, which we all know, because we all can see the messaging that happened at November, December last year, there will be opportunities for major projects in onshore wind and large demand in the northeast. And we're also talking to social housing providers, etc., about mass applications for low carbon technologies, which will build out our network on the way to net zero. So much more of that. The focus will shift away from connections reform and these quarterly webinars, probably from the next one onwards, where basically the gate 2 queue will be formed, and we'll start shifting to building. I'll pass to Jim. Take us through the detail.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Hi, I'm Jim Cardwell, and this is what we're going to be covering today. So it's pretty similar to last time. If you were with us last time on one of these, we're going to talk a bit about communication. Then we're going to talk about the existing projects, which is the for existing customers and the process we're going through now. Obviously, where probably 90% of the interest is, because it's pretty busy out there, as Paul just introduced. And then we're going to talk about a bit about the new projects and look ahead to that new window, so lift our gaze up a little bit, as Paul was just saying, and then into network build and where we're going with that as well. So just expand on some of those thoughts that Paul just did. So let's move it forward, please. And let's talk about communications. So this is really about making sure you get the information that's in a timely fashion, and it's what you need, and we're doing it with the right frequency. So I guess a really complicated old slide here looks like a sort of a case of some tropical disease. But what you can see is where we are. You can see in the rear view mirror going there in the greens. We've had loads of explainer webinars. So this is where we're going into some depth of detail, as Paul just said, in terms of particularly on this evidence. We're seeing a lot of interest from you, and we'll keep doing those as long as they keep more drop-in capability, if you like, for you to ask your questions. We've got all sorts of other sort of face-to-face events. We had the customer regional workshops earlier in the year, NESO for the North conference. And we've got lots of sort of direct engagement going on as well with our comms and social media to keep you updated through that process as well. So loads going on. I guess bottom left, that's where you want to click, find out where we've got events coming up. We are there we are today on W4, and the next one we're thinking about is October for this style of event. And you can see there on the bottom right the explainers that we're doing, what we've got going on. So the next one, 22nd of July, is about the evidence window, and really providing a little bit more as we close the evidence phase, with the 29th of July being really in our mind. Next slide, please. Okay, so a load of complexity, but in a nutshell, and very in a sort of hopefully very clear to understand detail. This is we've got existing projects that are going through the process, and we've got in the green arrows there for the existing projects. We've got the customer evidence collection period, so we're very much in that customer evidence window there. See, today's got a little bit behind there, but you can see that it ends on the 29th of July. Then we're going to get the new queue formed by NESO. We've got Will on the line from NESO today for the question answer session, and then we're going to move into detailed checks on that, and then we're going to start to actually get revised offers out there through the orange bars on the chart, and they're going to be in 3 main phases that are coming out depending on when those offers are due for, when the data connection is due. So they go through in sort of 3 batches there, up through to the end of October, up through to the end of January, and then up to the middle of May for the later offers. So so that's on the existing projects, and I'll come on to talk about the new projects when we get onto that section of the agenda. So let's move forward, please, Luke. Thank you. So we've got we have here our this is focusing so much of the attention. I see the questions flooding into the chat, and it's all about evidence submission, isn't it? So we've got a couple of handy links there to the evidence handbook, which is NESO's document, and also I guess the key points are, please do use that handbook. It is designed to help, and it explains how to complete each section. I guess the key point from our perspective is this is not intuitively obvious. This is quite difficult to get right, actually, to get completely right, and this is really about supporting you through that stage of the process, because your submission needs to align to the handbook. And our apology in advance is that some of our feedback may seem a bit pedantic, because it is, but there's a real compliance issue for you as customers, which is quite a challenge, and a lot of our customers are finding it challenging to do that. So our real plea that you'll see right the way through this, and right the way through our previous communications on this, is please go early. I mean, I say we've got less than 3 weeks to go now till the deadline. Go as soon as you can if you haven't started yet. Help us to help you, because the sooner you go, the more we can help you to get that going. A late application is going to have much less able for us to help you. So that's our call. But can we just advance it forward, please, Luke? Because what this is about here, about saying where our portal is. So if you go into our website and you go into the search window and you stick in transmission into that, and then let's keep going, Luke, and you'll find our transmission interface page. Next one, and there you go, bottom left, where that red circle is, submit the evidence. That's where you get into our portal, and that's where you can give us the information that you need to do. Now, a number of you are already doing this, so well done. Those of you who haven't done it, that's where you need to find it. Thank you. Next slide, please, Luke. So this is just about which projects need to do this, and so it's those requiring transmission impact assessment need to do this. And I guess the first line there is that if you're a small and medium embedded generator, so that's up to 99.9 megawatts, then you need to give us your evidence. And if you're a large embedded generator, so you're 100 megawatts or above, and you're on a beggar agreement, then you need to go to NESO's portal, and that's just opening now, and that's open, but they close on the same day. So our portal's been open since the 20th of May. The NESO's is opening now, but they both close for business on the 29th of July. And yeah, so if you're a large beggar, you go straight through to NESO. And out of scope of this process is demand or generation not triggering a transmission impact assessment, which is now less than 5 megawatts. So that's not required. That's the threshold that changed through the course of this year. And the bottom kicker on this is a really important note. So if you are what used to be called a Part 2 project in Appendix G, i.e. you were previously assessed, you're an existing agreement, you don't need any transmission works to connect to get your energization. But if you have not connected before the submission window closes, you still need to apply, you still need to provide all your evidence, and you still need to go through that process. And we're looking out for this and trying to identify where projects haven't started and trying to understand why not. But the point is, if you are on the Appendix G and you have not connected by the time the submission window closes on July the 29th, then you need to submit your evidence, even if you're on Part 2. And then just to, if we could just advance it one click, Luke, just to talk about this. So if you are a beggar, if you are a large embedded generator of 100 megawatts, we really also, so you're applying through the NESO portal, but we are also saying to you, and we've got about 30 customers, just under 30 customers in this category of our 360. But we need your red line boundary, please, because we need that to be able to enable us to help with that this assessment process. So although you're submitting to NESO, we also need your red line boundary coming through to us. So please send it through to us as well. Let's go forward, please, Lou. Okay, so what the evidence submission process is going on at the moment, and as I said previously, this is not intuitively obvious. There are lots of rules, so we are doing our very best to help you. But you do need to get hold of those rule books and get into them and really understand what is required. And we've tried to set it out for you there to give you where all those handy links are. And as I said, our explainer sessions are where we've been going through these and offering opportunity for more questions. So we'll tackle more questions today. We're open for questions, but we're still seeing a lot of questions popping up again, even though they've been bubbling around for some time. But we'll continue to help you there. It's been getting better, but it's still not good enough in terms of the number of applications that are competent at first attempt. So what I mean by that is they are compliant with the rule book. They're giving us all the information we need, regardless of whether it's going to get a new transmission queue position or where in the queue that is. This is just about saying, have you given us the information we need in the format that the rule books require? And at the moment, probably 40%. So the majority, the other way of looking at this, the majority are failing and are requiring follow-up from us. And that's why an earlier application is good, because it does allow us time to give you follow-up and help you to identify where you are failing in terms of giving us the information that is required. There's no one reason for this. I wish I could say it's box 3.5 that everyone gets wrong. It's not like that. There are various failure modes, and different customers are tripping up over different bits of the rule book. So it's not quite straightforward as just saying there's one failure mode out there. Leaving it late means that our checking feedback will be more limited. Take it to the extreme. If you leave it till the 5 p.m. on July the 29th or whenever the final hour is, clearly we're not going to be able to have a look at it or give you any feedback at all. But even the day before, depending on if there's a late sootfall, we might have now timed out being able to help you. So go as early as you can, please. You've got less than 3 weeks left, and get started. And of course, just a reminder of the sort of thing, the process we're taking you through here. This is all about making sure we've got the data on your land rights, your planning, to enable that readiness assessment to come through. Okay, next one, please, Lou. So in the meantime, we've got a number of customers. We've got technical limits going on. I think the latest was 39 projects into build at the moment. It's 1.7 gigawatts. So these are interim curtailable connections that ahead of if you need any transmission works. So the point is that we still see this as a method, a technique that's going to help customers, help you even after the new reformed queue. So when we get into the new world and we've got new transmission queue positions for you, for those of you still in the queue, then we still see this potentially as a helpful way to get you on sooner, if that makes sense for your project. But as it stands, any new offers right now are largely on hold, because essentially we're trying to make sure that we've got all the contracts in place and all the access that is either interim or enduring has been established, so that when we enter our data to NESO, when we've gathered all your data for your around 360 projects, we know exactly where you stand. So we can't be changing the queue and changing the who's in the queue right to the very last minute, because that could get us in a bit of a mess. So yeah, so largely we're not offering any new technical offers now. And of course, there could be one of the things that you might be familiar with, or if you're going through this process, is about the whole world of protections, the protection from being strategically aligned, the needed assessment in all of this. So the way that technical limits interacts with that is that there are 3 potential levels of protection, depending on when your connection date is on your interim technical limit agreement. And the final point is that your technical limit offer needs to be on an existing GSP. So technical limits don't work where the GSP is going to be you're going to be connected actually to a new GSP. You can't do an interim on a different GSP to where your enduring offer is going to be. And of course, one of the things we want to see out of connections reform actually is that the number of new GSPs, the need for them should reduce when the number of projects in the queue should reduce. So hopefully some of these issues will go away, but it's just a really important point to note in the meantime. Next one, please, Luke. Okay, so we're now moving into thinking about what is that new enduring well. So this is going beyond now where a lot of our attention is at the moment, you as customers, us as Northern Power Grid. We're now thinking about, right, when is that first enduring window? This is now getting into a 6-monthly routine. And this is going to be the process, which I'm not going to step through right now. But I guess the key point to note for this is we don't know yet when that date will be. Our working assumption is it will be in December of 2025. I don't think NESO have yet determined exactly when it will be, but certainly Ofgem said in their decision document in April that they expected the first of these new enduring windows on the 6-month cycle to start by the end of this year. So that would mean what you're going to see as a customer from us is that our portal will come down in terms of it will not be open for new evidence submission, but then it will reopen later on in the year. So let's say October, and it'll reopen then for the evidence that we require for the first of these enduring windows that's going to start later on the year. And I guess the key point is then that any customer that applies with their evidence and gets us their evidence with everything that they need will be entered into that first enduring window in December. So the next slide, please, which is a repeat, because this is now I'm going to talk about the sort of bottom half of this. And this just gives you if we look at the bottom half of this slide, this is for these new projects. So these are customers that you are accepting your distribution offer through the course of 2025 and essentially then waiting for the first of these windows to open, because you're not in the first batch, if you like, that existing projects group. You're in the new window, and we estimate it could be about 50 projects. We don't know, it will be what it will be, and of course that will be any customer that can accept their distribution offer and get their evidence in by whenever that date is that NESO closes their window in December, assumed, will do that. And so that's why we've put the green arrows here with the customer evidence window for that new one. We expect it to probably go from October to January. This is all to be confirmed, but that's our sort of planning assumption. And then we do detailed checks, etc. And then we expect that designs and customer offers probably be out in the sort of the middle of next year for transmission queue positions for those customers that have got a ready and needed in that new window. So we expect that to follow on. Next one, please, Luke. Okay, final one from me. Just talking now about the network build. So this is about, as Paul said right at the outset, we are doing a lot of work on the network build of the distribution network. So a lot of connections reform is all about, of course, about saying how can the transmission system accept all this new export from that's being directly connected to it, or it's coming up through our distribution networks. But then, of course, what we're doing also is about doing a build program on our distribution networks to do that. And what we have done is we have looked at our pipeline of projects, taken a view of where we couldn't be wrong for getting on with that investment now. So we're not waiting on connections reform to see exactly which customers get which contracts out of the NESO process, out of the connections reform process and Clean Power 2030. But we're getting on with the distribution build. So you see the kind of values we're talking about here. We've got a commitment for 51 million. The 27 million of those projects have now been commenced. We expect it to almost double by through the course of the rest of this year, and bringing up to 96 million by 2029. Technical limits projects are in the mix there as well. So we're getting on building and making sure that we've got the resources to get that pipeline delivered. So this is a key part, isn't it? As we all know, right across the industry, is making sure we've got the people and the materials to get these projects delivered, because we see a freeing up of our pipeline and a need to get these projects built out. So we're doing that. So Luke, I'm going to spin it forward and pass back to Paul, I think, at this stage.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. I just wanted to pick this back up. This is the features that we'll start talking about October onwards, of course. I really like people on the webinar to have a look at this document. This is the Energising Growth document that we'll be looking to engage on in the next year, to really set about how we're going to revolutionise as a business and make sure that we can deliver connections for businesses who want to decarbonise, as well as the generation community, which is, I know, mostly on this call. We'd like to see more demand and low carbon tech coming onto our network. Northern Power Grid forecasting will be a net exporter by 2028, 2029 of power. That means that we'll have lots and lots of renewable generation connected to our network, and that can be used by businesses who want to decarbonise and use the green electron, as the phrase goes. So pick that document up, if you would, please, and send me your comments into our engage@northernpowergrid.com. And of course, there'll be some events signalled by this webinar that people can come to, that will really look for major connections priorities in the next period. Really appreciate if everybody could have a look at that over the next quarter or so. Thank you. I think I'm passing to Brad.
No, we're going to launch the poll first. So Namalia, before we get into the Q&A, we're going to launch the polls. We've just got some questions that we want to ask the audience. So if you could please take the time to fill those in before we start the Q&A, that'd be much appreciated. You'll start to see them coming in the chat now. You can see the responses are starting to come in. Very good. 10. So once you answer the first poll, the second one will then follow. Yeah, we're starting to get some more responses, which is good.
There's a message there, as you can see, that somebody's finding the portal difficult.
Yeah, just on the poll. So we've seen a lot of questions come in around when they've completed their submission and it says it's closed, it doesn't provide them with the inquiry. So we've already started to see some of those queries come into the inbox, and I just want to thank everybody for providing that feedback. We've now passed that on to our IT team, who are now releasing a new development on it, so that will be included. So hopefully this weekend, so starting next week, that inquiry number will be in there for the feedback. So first question's got some other responses. We're just waiting for the second one.
What it tells me is there's 17 responses on this call that have not started out of the 75 that we've got on the call. So that's what roughly 1/5 of attendees haven't started, and we really want to encourage those customers to talk to us and get some help so we can get started, or tell us that they're not ready and they're going to go in another window.
Okay, have we got some good enough responses there, Paul?
Well, we're not going to get any more, I don't think. 17 and then 5.
Okay. We'll move into the Q&A. So Brad, I'll hand over to you yourself.
Thanks, Luke. Good morning, everyone. We'll now move into the Q&A. So as always, please use the chat function to ask any questions if you've not already done so. So we will try and answer as many questions today as possible during the session for any, and we're going to start with the ones that were pre-submitted before this webinar. So thanks for those questions that have came in for that. If we run out of time or we can't answer your question today, we will follow those up individually. The last thing to say is, well, we will be answering questions during the webinar. The topic's complexity may lead to misunderstandings. Therefore, the formal written responses to the Q&A sent out after the webinar will be the official MPG answers. If you could move to the next slide, please, Luke. And I'll start with the first pre-submitted question. And that question is, what happens if you miss the July reform deadline? Is there likely to be another one? So in answer to that question, those who missed the deadline for submitting their readiness evidence will not form part of the Gate 2 to whole queue exercise, and as such will receive a Gate 1 offer from NESO. They'll have the opportunity to apply in the new enduring windows. I'll now hand you... Go on.
So Brad, just starting that, the deadline for the evidence submission window for the Gate 2 to whole queue, as they call it, which is the existing agreements, is July the 29th, as Jim said in the slides, and the new enduring window is proposed to open in the new year, at the end of this year. Sorry.
Gate 1 of this one.
Thanks, Luke. I'll hand you over to Martin to answer the next question.
Thank you. The next question is relating to lease. So if you have a heads of terms on a lease with progressed documentation and not the full lease by the July deadline, will you still receive protections? The person raising the question said we currently have a 5-year lease with a landlord that's being updated and extended, but it will likely take longer to agree than the end of July. The answer to this one, to meet the readiness criteria, you need to evidence that you have an option agreement in place, which extends 3 years from the date the option was signed, accompanied by either a purchase or lease agreement covering the 20 years from the date of exercise. So I'll hand to Haider for the next question.
Yep, thank you, Martin. So the next question is, what is required for projects where the option agreement is in the name of the project-specific SPV, and the grid connection agreement is in the name of the parent company? So the answer to that is, we require the applicant to provide an exception document explaining why. If clear rationale is provided as part of the declaration, this will be deemed acceptable. Back to you, Brad, for the next one.
Thanks, Haider. So the next question is, can a better, more cost-effective solution be offered as part of a Gate 2 variation? The context here is where a project has accepted a suboptimal connection solution due to interactivity, but due to attrition of projects to the Gate 1, there is now hosting capacity at the originally desired connection point. The answer to this is yes, there will be some schemes based on the amount of attrition, so schemes dropping away, where a new cost-effective solution will be redesigned. Martin, back over to you.
Thank you. Next question is technical limits. So can Northern Power Grid comment on the rollout of technical limit style active network management, which will need to be widely adopted to support project advancement in meeting CP 2030 targets for capacity? Is this going to be widely available, and what impact will this have in terms of connection dates? So the answer, technical limits will resume following the Gate 2 to whole queue process. In the customer readiness declaration portal, there is an option for customers to express an interest in technical limits. For those that are eligible, we will then contact in Q4 this year. So Haida for the next page and question 6.
Yeah. So question 6 is, will email confirmation from a landowner's solicitor be sufficient evidence that an option to lease has been extended? And the answer to that is, please update the lease in this circumstance, as it seems that this is already agreed. Brad, back to you.
Thanks, Haida. So the next question is clarity on the need for and process for MPG support and advancement requests. How are the technical limit dates being treated? Is the intention to keep these dates and the flex to the firm dates, or will the technical limit dates flex as well based on firm dates? Can we remove our technical limit date in the future if we secure an earlier firm date? So the answer to this is advancement request is made through the portal by entering the earliest date in advance. You're also agreeing to advance the closest date achievable networks can provide. Martin, I'll hand over to you.
All right, I'm going to reverse back up the road very slightly because I think question 7 was jumped over. So can you confirm, as per the NESO handbook, that the original red line boundary just needs to show a scale bar and not necessarily a recognized ratio scale such as a 1 to 10,000? Especially that original lead round boundaries produced using Google Earth, which shows an actual distance on a planned scale being acceptable. Our answer, your red line boundary must show a scale that helps us identify the size of your land, and it must be accurate. So please use the evidence handbook as part of your submission to support that.
Yep, thanks, Martin. I'll go back to question 9. So do NPG or NESO have a strategy or process to coordinate infrastructure upgrades in the area and review potential synergies to optimize connections in close proximity to each other? And the answer to that is yes. MPG have published our Energising Growth Plan. As part of this evolving approach, we are developing a new matchmaking capability to proactively identify synergies among connection applications. By focusing on geographically close or complementary projects, we aim to bring projects together where collaboration could result in shared infrastructure, mutual cost efficiencies, and accelerated connection times. NESO have also published their Strategic Spatial Energy Plan, which aims to guide where energy infrastructure should be built across Great Britain, coordinating with developers and networks. It works alongside regional energy strategic plans to align national goals with local delivery. And back to Brad for question 10.
Thanks, Ida. So next question is, if I'm not wrong, any scheme of 4.94 megawatts or below where there are no fault level issues at the GSP will be out of scope for connections reform. Would that mean, as we don't have to go through the Gate 2 process, we could receive a sooner connection date, or would we be at the end of the queue of the projects that are currently going through the Gate 2 process? In answer to that question, those schemes who are below 5 megawatts can connect without going through transmission entry assessment unless there are fault level issues at that JSP. This will remain below 1 megawatt in that instance. Any scheme currently above this threshold looking to reduce will still need to submit evidence via the Customer Readiness Declaration portal and request a reduction via this process. Martin, I'll hand over to you.
Can I add to that one? Because we're seeing some questions come into the inbox, so the connections reform inbox, and it says it's about schemes with multiple technologies, and they're saying, well, if I reduce my solar below 5 megawatt, does that mean I'm not in scope of connections reform? But it's the total export for that site. So if your total export is 10 megawatt and you're just reducing one part, it doesn't mean you're below the scope. It's the total export for that site. So just to be totally clear.
Thanks, Luke. Martin, I'll hand over to you for the next question on the next page.
Right, we're on question 11. If you have a signed option for 2 years with the option to extend for a further 1 year, does this meet the requirement for a 3-year option period? And simple answer, yes, this meets the requirement as it can cover up to 3 years. Ida.
Yeah, question 12. Our option agreement comprises 2 copies of the same agreement, but with only one set of signatures on each. When you marry them up, you can see that both parties are happy, but we don't have a single version with both signatures on it. Should we upload both copies, and will you guys cope with that as suitable evidence? So the answer to that is we will have to see the option agreement to deem this valid. But yes, if you just upload both copies for us to validate, we'll have a look, and that should be okay. Back to Brad, question 13.
Thanks, Haida. And next question is, please can you remind us what the different connection reform declaration stages mean on your portal? So after an application has been submitted. In particular, what is the difference between accepted and closed? So an answer to this question is accepted is where MPG have received your application and we are reviewing. Closed is where everything has been checked and we don't require any further actions from yourself.
And Brad, sorry to cut in again. I keep putting your questions. I'm not just picking on you. Just to add to that as well, around some of the changes that were made to the declaration portal on the new release. You can now go into your application where it's been closed, and you can download a PDF, which is a copy of everything that you've submitted.
Thanks, Luke. Martin, over to you.
Yeah, we're on question 14 now. So quick one on milestones. Please confirm milestone M7 criteria required as evidence to achieve protection for projects connecting in 2026, which is strategic alignment 1A. So the answer on that is for milestone M7, there's multiple criteria that you can meet. All stage payments being up to date, or a binding contract for main plant equipment, or a board paper evidencing final investment decision, or a subsidy award. Haida for number 15.
Yeah, thank you. So number 15, the energy density criteria for energy from waste is substantially higher than for other fuel technologies. Why is this? Almost no existing energy from waste plant in the UK can meet the criteria. Does NESO accept that this indicates that the criteria set cannot be correct? Surely for any fuel technology, the land density requirement minimum megawatt acreage falls with increasing output. The criteria is counter to the science. Surely this is wrong. Will the requirement be withdrawn? It should be, because it will have severe implications for the waste industry in particular and for other fuel generation projects. So the land, the LOA document and the acreage within it is a NESO published document. So if you could please direct that to NESO via their email, the queries email, which you can find on their website. There's a link there, and it's also, I believe, supposed to be posted into the chat. So if you could direct that question, please, to the portal on in the chat. Thank you.
Hi, we've got Will on the call from NESO. Will, is that right in what we're advising customers to do on that one?
Yes, absolutely. I'd also ask the customer to bear in mind strategic alignment and Clean Power 2030, and whether energy from waste is aligned with kind of the government objectives.
Thanks, Will.
Okay, Brad, I think it's question 16.
Thanks, Haida. Yeah, I'll take the last of the pre-written questions before we move into the questions in the chat. And the last question is, what is MPG and NESO's experience with the evidence submitted so far? Are there any obvious mistakes that happen in the majority? So an answer to this question is yes. The most common mistake that we're seeing is red line boundary and missing certain criteria such as decimal places for the coordinates, changing the point of supply without seeking agreement from MPG, and not the right amount of land for the development.
And I think the key theme through like what we've been talking and all the explainers that we've been on, and what you mentioned, is use the evidence handbook. Digest that evidence handbook, and if you follow the guidance to the handbook, you can't go wrong. But that would be your first protocol.
Cheers. Look, we'll now move into the questions that are in the chat. And Paul, I think this first one's probably coming towards you. And the question is, for the enduring process, how accurate/reliable will the DNO offers be? Will it be meaningful prior to a gate 2 offer?
I think it's a really interesting point that we're starting to think about the enduring window now, and certainly there'll be more information coming out. But at Northern Power Grid, we don't see any changes to our process in terms of what the offers will look like. So you'll receive the offer as you see them today. I mean, obviously things improve through time, so we're expecting that to happen, but they'll be as they are, at least as good as they are today. They'll then be accepted in the same way, and the payments will arrive in the same way, and then they will go forward into the next enduring window.
Is it fair to say that out of that, like all of the NPG offers where they need transmission system access are subject to the outcome of transmission?
Of course.
All right, so I
Thanks.
think I'll take the first question that was submitted. So we have land rights for a solar, and the point of supply is located within that area. However, the point of connection is off-site, connected via an overhead line and cable route. So this might be one for you, Elliot. Can you please confirm that we are only required to show evidence of land rights for the point of supply and not for the point of connection or the associated cable route? And additionally, where the point of supply is adjacent to the tower and the solar site is located some distance away, should the point of supply be shown on the red line boundary, or is it sufficient to include only the solar site?
Matthew, in answer to your question there, all we want to know is what your red line boundary is, that your point of supply is inside that red line boundary, and how many acres you have to be able to build the technology that you're planning on building. Yeah, any other workings out of weir leaves or lease agreements for cables will be worked out as part of business as usual when you move into delivery. This is all just about checking that you have the right to occupy on your site and that you have enough space to build the technology you're building. I hope that answers your question, mate.
All right, thank you. Haida, next.
Yeah, so next question. How are lift and shift provisions in a lease viewed in the connection reform process? E.g., if a site has a 30-year lease, but that lease contains a lift and shift provision, which the landlord could invoke after, say, 10 years, with no hard obligation for the landlord to find an alternative site for the scheme, would this still meet the minimum 20-year lease requirement specified by connections reform? Or would it be considered to be at risk of being less than the required minimum 20-year lease term and deemed a non-compliant issue lease? Luke, are you okay to come in for that one?
So, Haida, just that was in the club. There's a clause in there where the owner can have a lift and shift, so they can move the site.
Yeah, so in order to meet the requirements, it has to have a minimum of 20 years on the lease. So that if there's a clause there for lift and shift, and the owner can take 10 years off it, would that still meet the requirement? I think the question is.
No, so the answer is no. As in the guidance and the methodologies, you must have 20 years, and if the owner can take 10 years off that, then you potentially at risk. It is at risk.
You don't have 20
You
years.
don't have 20 years.
Brad, for next question.
Thanks, Haida. So, Will, this one's probably for you, and it sounds like it might be in relation to Rebecca. And the question is, question for NESO. 2 of our projects are missing from our NESO portal. We've emailed NESO asking for access, but haven't had a reply. We want to submit today, but have no way of doing so. What do we do?
I think thanks very much for the question, Michael. I think I replied further down in the chat. Please can you make sure you've submitted your queries through our connections portal, and if you don't have access to the connections portal, you can email our box.connectionsreform@neso.energy. So our handling of queries is through a kind of a centralized process to make sure everyone gets the same experience.
And
Thanks, Will.
Can I, Brad, sorry, just to add to that. So what I'm not sure about is whether these projects are Northern Power Grid beggar projects that need to be put through the NESO portal, or they might be just completely irrelevant to Northern Power Grid. They might be transmission directly connected projects to NESO. So I guess that I think from a Northern Power Grid perspective, I said earlier, didn't I, that we've got about 30 large beggar projects that need to go to the NESO portal. And we're already saying to our customers, please send us your red line boundaries, as well as submitting them onto the NESO portal as required there. So if you're having problems in one of our projects, if you're a Northern Power Grid customer, but you're trying to submit, please let us know as well, because I think we'd like to know that there's a problem there and see if there's anything we can do to help get that sorted. I appreciate that ultimately it'll be Will's colleagues if there's just an issue that he's sorting, but we just need to know that there's a problem there, I suppose, and we can get involved if that's necessary.
Jim, but thanks very much, Jim. Building on that, so we are aware that the portal was kind of ready recently, and there are teething problems. But if you do submit into the portal, we do have a way. We basically look for these technical issues to respond promptly. So there, we do have an internal process that flags up these issues for a prompt response.
All right, great. Thank you. I'm going to take the next question and declare it answered, actually. It's a question raised by Alexander Halavin. It's coincidental, perhaps, that Jim's just answered the next question. It talks about for large embedded power stations and the process, and that's exactly what Jim's just covered off. So if there's any questions that's left remaining from that one, please contact us through our DSO transmission inbox.
Just on that, Luke, do you want to just provide an explanation for Alexander as to why we're asking for that red line boundary? And
Yeah.
I appreciate the sentiment of the question. It is complex, it's already quite convoluted, etc. But you just want to explain why we're asking?
So even before connection reform, submitting a red line boundary to the DNO was always in place. So when you've submitted your first red line boundary, we then carry out a design based on what you've previously submitted. So we just need to make sure that we're doing the same checks for our large customers as we are for the small and medium, where we're checking that nothing's changed in terms of the design. And it's just to make sure that you as a customer, that your project isn't at risk later on. So if we do come to check and the point of supply has changed, which means we have to do remodeling or it impacts other customers who've done the design in line with, we don't want that to happen at a later stage. So we need to do that due diligence and do that check. And just to be clear, don't submit it via the large customers, it's only large. Don't submit it through the portal, the online portal. Just email it to the connections reform inbox as was described in the slides, that red line boundary.
Great, thank you, Luke. And seeing as I didn't really ask a question, I'm going to ask one now. This one is going to come to you, Luke, I think. So it's a quick question about, we are awaiting a planning decision. Should we start to submit the other documents anyway? So that means in our portal.
Yeah, no, so absolutely. So the portal's designed so you can start your submission and you can come back to it later. So you don't have to so you can start it, but you don't have to make a final submission. So you can start to input documents. But what I would say is, try not to go to the deadline. If you think you're not going to get that plan in this window, hit the submission button before that July 29th.
Thanks, Luke. We'll go over to Haida for the next question.
Yeah. So the next question, it might have already been covered, I think, unless Will, you want to come in for anything further, but it's about the NESO portal again and submitting evidence through the NESO portal. Is there anything you want to add to that, Will? Or?
No, just do submit through the portal. Appreciate people's experience haven't been as slick as we would like them to be, but the portal application or .box is the right way for flagging concerns, and we are trying to get that better.
Thanks, Will. So I'll go to the next question then. Please, could we have some guidance on the original red line boundary criteria? For a large complex scheme with more than 10 landowners covering more than 1,000 acres, would it be acceptable to break the original red line boundary into multiple individual plans to allow the scale of each plan to be at a scale that can be easily interpreted? If not, would a plan at 1 to 130,000 be acceptable? At this scale, it is very difficult to see individual boundaries in detail. We want to make this as easy to review as possible. I don't know if you want to come in for that, Elliot.
Yeah. So this one, there's two things going on. So you've got your land rights, right? Which obviously you've got 10 different landowners. So you'll have a load of land rights documents there. Yeah, that's one issue. Park that. Yeah. Your other issue, again, the original red line boundaries to show total acreage for the technology that you're installing. So all you really need to do is show the boundary of all of those 10. Yeah. And give us the number of how many acres that covers and make sure that you've got enough acres to build the technology you're building. Yeah, we don't need to see the individual parcels, yeah, for the red line boundary. We just need to know how much space you have overall and that you've got enough space to build your technology inside. If you've got more than one different technology type, there's a calculation in the LOA guidance which shows you how to calculate total acreage for multiple technologies. And that would be the number that you would show cross-referencing your overall boundary of all those parcels of land there.
Elliot, is it worth mentioning, like adding on, the questions the queries that we're getting about DC and AC on the install? Do you want to cover that one? What is it? Okay.
Yeah, just you see, installed is just the whole megawatt value that you're putting in on site. If it's solar, it's going to be the AC value on the inverter side. Everything else is just, like you say, the whole megawatt value. Whatever you put in your G99 form when you applied for your technology back in the day, that's what it has to be. All right.
Yep, thank you. Over to Brad for the next question.
Thanks, Haida. Martin or Haida, this might be one for you. And the question is, please can NESO or MPG explain what indicative technical limits of offers are? We accepted one of these in good faith and have subsequently been told that it's no longer valid and that our project, which has planning permission, will be accelerated after connections reform.
Yep, thanks.
Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a technical limits offers, the process that we go through and went through, was to issue the offers out in stages. So an indicative offer is provided before what we call the supplemental agreement, which is the contractual offer. The purpose of the indicative offer to help people see what the costs will be, what the level of anticipated acceleration will be, and the associated curtailment that they might see. The indicative offer is just that, it's indicative. It's not a contract with us at that point. And if accepting the indicative offer, if that happens, then we go ahead and we prepare the contractual offer. So if a contractual offer hasn't been issued or hasn't yet been accepted, then the status of that project is it doesn't yet have technical limits. So without going into the specifics of this particular project, if you wish to pick up the conversation through the DSO transmission interface inbox, then we can help on that one some more.
Thanks, Martin. It's over to you for the next question.
Right, I'll keep talking. Thank you. So we've submitted evidence for 4 projects. We've received 3 confirmation emails as below. However, the email doesn't contain the project reference number. So I'm going to jump straight to the answer there. I think Luke's already answered that we've identified that as an issue in our portal, which we've taken up with the IT team, and we'll have that up and running next week. So Luke, jump in if I haven't got that correct, but I think that's what you've said already today.
No, that's it. Just thanks for the feedback, because you've helped to improve the portal massively.
Great, thanks. Haida?
Yeah, so next question. Is it really required to submit the full planning application documents for each project? This means more than 850 pages for each application and over 90 documents and diagrams. Can we just submit the planning application number and local authority website links instead? So I think I can take that one. So on the portal, I think where you need to evidence the planning is for the milestone. So as long as we see, so for example, for M2, if you submit the planning approval document, and for M1, the submitted document, we can then do the checks according to them documents. You don't need to upload every single document, just what the portal asks for regarding that specific requirement. I will then pass over to Brad for the next question.
Thanks, Haida. So, Will, this one might be coming your way. So it was a thanks in response to the answer you provided, but there was a further question. So please, can you clarify, if a developer is developing multiple projects through different SPV companies, should each SPV have its own portal registration, or can the developer access each of its SPV projects through the same developer portal?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, each should be individual. So each SPV has a separate legal identity, so it'll have separate portal entries.
Thanks, Will. Martin, I'll hand back to you.
All right, thank you. So this is a long question, and Luke, I'm going to ask you to see if you can cover off the answer. I'll try and whiz through it. So you've mentioned in the beginning of the session that Northern Power Grid are keen to help customers with technical queries and provide the necessary support ahead of providing the Gate 2 evidence. As a customer holding a number of contracted solar and BESS schemes with Northern Power Grid, we've raised 4 different inquiries on the original red line boundary matter. The only answer we've got from Northern Power Grid's team so far is that Gate 2 submissions should be made for the scheme, as NPG cannot add the files to the submission until a submission is created. Apparently this is not a helpful advice, and we expected to obtain the necessary clarification prior to Gate 2 submission to avoid any critical mistakes being made. So Luke, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll take that on board. The team are here to help. So if you email connections reform, even copy in myself, luke.scott@normpowergrid, I'll take that on board and make sure you get the answer that you need. I know the team are there and they're supporting customers through, and we've had good feedback on it. So if you've had a bad experience, sorry, but well, please send in your query and I'll make sure it gets addressed.
Thanks, Luke. Go to Haida.
Yep. So the next question then, we have just submitted planning application via the planning portal, but there are 2 local authorities involved with our planning application, and they have not yet returned validated reference numbers. Can we submit screenshot from planning portal of our status, or should we submit most of our gate to whole queue application and then add the validated reference numbers later on in the month? So I'd say yes, if you upload any evidence you've got at the moment, upload that, and then as Luke mentioned with the previous question, the planning portal, our portal does allow for submissions to be made and for you to come back and submit further evidence. So if you can submit as and when that evidence comes in, I think that answers the question, unless there's anything to add. Anyone? No. I'll pass over to Brad.
Thanks, Haida.
Sorry, sorry, Brad. I am just going to come in because it's made us think of another query that's come in. So if you're submitting planning on our portal, there's 2 routes to go down. It says you can either go down the land route or the planning route. If you've got town country planning, you still go down the land. The planning route on the portal, as per the NESO guidance, is only for those customers who've got a DCO, a development consent order. It's just pure and simple. Planning route on the portal, development consent order. If it's town and country planning, you still go down your land route. And the reason behind the town and country planning is that gives you priority when we come to do the queue order.
Have we got any DCO?
We've got one DCO.
Okay,
Yeah, Luke. Is that back over to me, Martin?
Yep.
Right, Will, it seems like I've landed on all the questions for you. So I think you've partially answered this, Will, but there's probably maybe a little bit more to go on it. And the query is, is query for NESO, is there a dedicated point of contact for technical issues with the portal for submissions, i.e. all fields filled out, but the section won't save? Questions submitted via the portal take a long time to be answered, more than a week in most cases, if they are even answered. Concerned that the later we submit, the less time we have to remedy any errors NESO may identify. I think the question that you've answered already, Will, might just, is there any sort of workaround if there's no, is there any sort of second steps, any other actions people can take to get resolution?
No, unfortunately, it is through the portal or the dot box. We are prioritising queries like this, and we are aware of these kind of these teething issues. Please do submit, and we'll sort them out as fast as we can. We know it's not as good as experiences we'd like it to be, but we are where we are.
Thanks. Thank you, Will. Martin, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. So, Luke, this is a CMP 446 and the 5 megawatt question. So, for connections that have requested a capacity reduction to under 5 megawatts, but have also submitted evidence to Northern Power Grid, when will these be notified that they've been removed from the gate 2 to whole queue process?
It'll come out through the offer stage. So once the window shuts, because once the window is open and you're still submitting your evidence, and those customers want to reduce, do that through the evidence window. Northern Power Grid will then review it after, because the first thing we've got to look at is it an allowable change? You know, it isn't a reduction so much that it changes the solution. And if it's allowable, it'll be after the July 29th when we'll be able to inform the customers. So sometime in August, September.
Thank you. Haida?
So the next question, is there going to be a dispute window following the deadline and initial checks to correct, say, clerical errors, which might result in non-compliance with Gate 2?
Do you want me to take it, Haida?
Yeah, if you want.
I think it's a good question, because this is why our whole theme is help us to help you get your submission in early, so we can provide the feedback so that doesn't happen. Because as it stands, when the window shuts at midnight on July 29th, that's midnight, that's it. Whatever's been submitted has been submitted. There is a little time period what NESO want open, I think of 6 days, and Will, you might clarify better, where we might come out where we might seek clarification. But if it's a complete error, you need to be getting it right now. So after the 29th, there's not another opportunity. Oh, that makes sense. But like I said, get your submission in early so we can give you that feedback, and that doesn't happen.
Over to you, Brad.
Thanks, Haida. Elliot, this one might be for you. So it's from a previous question, and that question was, will an email confirmation from landowner solicitor be sufficient for evidence that an option at lease has been extended? And the answer to that one was update the lease in these circumstances, and it seems, update the lease in the circumstance as it seems this is already agreed. There's a further question on this one, Elliot, is what do you mean by update the lease?
Yeah, so cheers, Brad. I think Mark Johnston's been in the chat and covering this one off for us. So basically, he's just said we need a covering letter from the landowners to explain exactly what's happening. Yeah, do that and get it submitted for us, and we'll see that when it comes in.
Brilliant. Thanks, Elliot. Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Now, I'm not an expert on my acronyms here, so I'm just going to read it out. So I have a single WTG site where the lease area is limited to the crane pad, foundation, access track. It does not meet the acreage requirement. So, Elliot, this might be for you. It doesn't meet the acreage requirement, which I think is about 7.6 acres per megawatt. Readiness does allow this to be explained, but is it likely to be accepted?
Well, we're going to have the same check of the acreage as you will in the LOA guidance document. So if there's a way to explain it, we'll have to have a look at that and see what we think and if we agree. But we'd have to see exactly what those circumstances are before we can make a call on it, I'm afraid. Yeah, so if you can get that written up and sent in, we'll certainly take a look at it for you.
And just to do that again is on the customer portal, there's an exception box where you can upload your exception with explanation and a document, a written document in the portal.
And before I hand over to Haydn, dare I say, that's probably a really good example of a reason to get your submissions in early, because things like that might require some feedback. Okay, so we'll move over to Haydn.
Yeah, next one. For planning submitted evidence, will screenshots from the planning portal be sufficient? I'd say no, if you could upload the planning application, which should also contain the reference number. We also do some cross-checking on the planning portal, but if you could please upload the application submitted for planning with the reference number. Over to Brad for the next question.
Thanks, Haida. I'm just looking through the remaining questions, and I believe they have all. There's no further questions. There's some responses provided by Mark. Thanks, and Elliot. There are no further questions in the chat. So, Luke, I don't know if we want to look at the.
Before we move it, there's just on the TIA threshold, just want to, because again, it just made us think of some other queries that came in. So I just want to answer the question about, for small, as part of the TIA threshold, the changes in CMP 446, there's no rounding for small now. So if it's 5 megawatt and above, it needs transmission impact assessment. For those GSPs with fault issues, if it's reverts to 1 megawatt and above, but rounding still applies for medium and large customers. So it goes to 1 decimal place. I just want to colour it off. So rounding applies at medium and large. It doesn't apply at small anymore. And small is if it's 1 megawatt, there's fault issues at the GSP, it's 1 megawatt and above, and it's 5 megawatt where there's no fault issues.
The smallest, 4.94.
Yeah. But no round. So the smallest is 1 megawatt. It's small, no rounding, but it goes up to 49. Was it 49.94?
See what the 4.9 is. Or is it 5?
It's 5.
If it's 5,
If it's 5 and above,
TIA.
it's TIA, transmission impact assessment.
If it's 4.95,
4.95, it's below. It doesn't require it. Yeah.
Oh, there's one question just dropped in there, Luke. I can read out. So, where land has been purchased but is yet to appear on HMLR due to delays, will a TP1 transfer signed by the parties suffice? That one's probably for you, Luke.
Good question.
Elliot, I'm not sure if you want to jump in on this one.
We'll have to have a look at it. I think there was some provision for if there was all of a sudden a delay in getting it logged on the system, that something else could have been provided. I'm almost sure that there was, but we'll look. Joseph, we'll take that one away and we'll answer it for you.
Yeah, good shout, Elliot. It's Mark. The key is the land deal. So it's evidence in the land deal. It doesn't necessarily, I don't think, have to be evidenced through land registry. So in the absence of a land registry title, there'll be an alternative, whether it's the TR1 form or whether it's something else. We'll come back and, as Elliot says, we'll double check that and feed that back to you.
I've seen a question coming from Kevin Farrell that says, can I clarify if point of supply is required to be marked on the original red line boundary, as it isn't mentioned in the handbook? And it's not mentioned on the handbook. The handbook's all about connection reform, but as I previously said, Kevin, at DNO, the red line boundary has always been a thing. You've always got to submit your red line boundary to DNOs. So we need that point of supply, and if you're changing it on the one that you submit to meet in line with the criteria of the Evans handbook, we'll also need to see the point of supply so we can see the change. So I hope that answers your question.
Cool. I think that is it. And there's no new questions in the chat, Luke. So I think I was handing over to Paul for a summary before we go into the polls at the end.
Thanks everyone for your questions so far. Clearly there will be other opportunities in the next 3 weeks, and the themes are still the same themes around red line boundaries and clarification on the land ownership. And I have to say, let's follow the rule books. It's there to help us all. We are looking to collect as many projects through the portal as possible and provide you the advice that you need. So just a final encouragement from me to submit your evidence promptly and start having discussions with the team that you see online here. We are still running explainer sessions, and so you can sign up for those at the upcoming events page. And of course, we've got the frequently asked questions up there on the NESO site. And support from our team can be gained without knowing people's names, just with connections reform at northernpowergrid.com. So we're hoping that you can get moving. It'd be great to get people to say if they're not going to submit, and really, tell us that we're not chasing everybody the last one down towards the end. We expect September time, so that's before we have another one of these sessions, to start being able to talk about who's in the gate 2. When we come back for one of these sessions scheduled for around about October, that will be the theme, of course, and that will then move into the new enduring window, which we're forecasting late November, December time. And then just a final shout out from me, which is, yes, 2022 through to 2026 is all about generation and the generation queue. But I am forecasting these sessions will move to demand connections. And I'd ask anybody who's interested in the demand side of the world to look at our energising growth document, and also anybody who's got onshore wind, and as well as the large demand, to start talking to us about where they're thinking about looking at projects. That'd be really helpful. So we'd like to hear from you. There'll be some sessions that advertise around where we're headed next with our engagement plans, to start collecting information and draw what our plans are going to be to build out in the next regulatory period. Really appreciate you coming on today and your engagement and your questions. And we seem to be hitting the nub of the problems out there. So I'm hoping that we'll see the numbers jump up from where we are now in this next week, and everybody start getting their documentation to us. Really appreciate your time. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Paul. So just before we close, we would really appreciate your feedback as always. So we've got our standard poll, and we'd really like you to just take the time, this extra 5 minutes before you drop, just to tell us how well we're doing. You know, have you felt engaged? Are we doing enough? This feedback is much appreciated. So if Namalia, if you'd like to launch the final polls, please. Should be coming up in the chat very soon. Yeah, they're live there now. So if you, like I said, if you could please fill in the polls, give us our feedback. It really helps us to develop and change or continue as we are with what we're doing with the webinars. So 53 people still in the webinar. It'd be good to get those 53 responses. Still waiting for a little bit more. Starting to fill up nicely. Thank you. We're getting some positive feedback. Thanks very much. We're seeing any further movement on the polls? That's slowly creeping up. I'll give it a little bit more time. Thank you very much for staying behind and filling the polls. Much appreciated. Okay, we'll make a stop there. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone who joined. Appreciate it. Take care.